Welcome to a bonus edition of the John Krasinski Show, our Timberwolves and NBA show at talknorth.com. Best way to listen to this show and get all the bonus editions. Subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's the easiest way to listen. It's also free. You can also always go to talknorth.com or follow us on social media, see the shows as they are produced. Again, subscribing is the easiest way. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We're talking on Thursday morning following game one, and we're going to preview game two. Again, this is a quick hit show. We're not going to do all our full advertising. We're just going to kind of give you a taste of what to expect coming forward. Our full show will be out early next week, and we'll have all the usual features. All right, John. I watched that game last night, and I thought, man, the Wolves look tired. Now, it sounds like an excuse, but I also think it's true.
Yeah, no, I do. And Anthony Edwards certainly said as much afterward. He said he was exhausted, and you could see it. And I don't think that's a surprise given how emotional and how grueling that 7-game series was against the Nuggets. The Dallas Mavericks did not have the same level of intensity to beat OKC, and they got an extra day of rest. And I do think that they showed up to game one, and they played well early, but they did not quite have enough energy in their legs to sustain offense down the stretch. And I think that just made a big difference in that game. They just were a couple of shots short, free throws missing, a few things. And so they missed an opportunity to be up 1-0 in this thing, because I don't think Dallas played their best game either.
Agreed. I did think, it's always interesting. Like I talked about us sitting press row, game 7, watching that Nuggets game. And there were times when all of us old, jaded, long-term sports writers were gasping at what we were seeing. I had the same reaction, and the people around me did too, watching Kyrie Irving in that first half. That was stunning. If you've forgotten just how incredible and unique he is, he reminded us.
Oh, absolutely. You really did see where experience comes into play in these spots. He has been in these big moments, been in conference finals, won championship. And you could see that he was just really going for it, especially in the first half there. I think he sensed that the Wolves were a little bit flat-footed, and he went right at them. And his finishing package at the rim is unparalleled, maybe even in the history of the league for a smaller guard. And you saw all sorts of sorcery, all sorts of wizardry in the first half to keep Dallas in it while the Wolves were actually playing pretty well offensively. And I thought that Anthony Edwards did a great job on him in the second half. He was 1 for 9 in the second half. But I also think that all of the energy that Ant had to expend chasing Kyrie around trickled over to the offensive side and was a reason that he was not his usual self offensively. So Kyrie affected the game in a number of ways, not just making shots, but also really wearing Anthony Edwards out so that he was not as potent offensively as he normally is.
No doubt about it. The Timberwolves get out-rebounded. Was that simply energy, or was there something else at play there?
Well, I do think, I was interested to see how that matchup was going to go in the front court in this series, because I do think that the Mavericks have a lot of very athletic, hard-playing dudes up there. Derek Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively. Maybe not the sheer size that Gobert and Towns and Naz Reid have, but absolute dogs out there that really compete, that really get after it, and that can be very athletic and go after and get the ball. And I do think that the Wolves had a hard time adjusting to that. In game one, I think that, the Nuggets had Aaron Gordon, who is hyper athletic, but then they had Jokic, who was much more of a space eater and grinder on the board, still terrific rebounder. But I think that the difference in athleticism and style of in approach to play of these Mavericks, I think it caught the Wolves off guard a little bit. They didn't seem to really rise to the occasion from a hustle standpoint, and they got outworked a little bit there. And Rudy Gobert said as much afterward. He said he can't allow that to happen. And so I think game one was very much an acclimation game. And And they are going to have to acclimate and adjust and be ready for the aggression on the glass by these Mavericks bigs and shore that area up.
Let's talk about Jaden, Kyle, and what we expect out of game 2. Just do want to let you know we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We want to thank all of our sponsors, Chew Vision Institute, which John will tell you a little bit about. One of our newer sponsors, Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. Great place for bourbon, whiskeys, but also everything. And also, you go to a local place. Don't go to the big box store. Go to the local place. Support local businesses. Thanks to TSR Injury Law, 612 TSR Time. Go watch the games at Head Flyer Brewing in East Minneapolis. Great place, a Timberwolves bar, man. And all kinds of great stuff, food trucks, seltzers, but great beer. Go hang out there. They will keep the game on. They will not kick you out in the fourth quarter. Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line. John's told you all about their stuff and how comfortable it is and how much he loves wearing it. Thanks to all our sponsors who make all of this possible here at TalkNorth.com. So game 2, I always remember the old Tom Thibodeau line, which people got tired of hearing, but it is true. You don't change your strategy until you know that your players have tried to execute it to their best ability. So is there a strategic adaptation here for Finch, or does he just have to have his guys play better?
Yeah, I mean, I it was funny. I just got done talking to Stan Van Gundy for a little while about just the series and about what he's seen so far, and both he and Reggie Miller emphasized, like, look, it didn't go well for the Wolves last night. They lost the game, but they lost by 3 points to a really good team, and they didn't hit shots the way that they normally do, especially Cat and Ant. Certainly Nikhil and Mike Conley both had rough nights as well that way. So I think that there's probably just going to be more of a sense going into game 2 of, hey, we got one under our belt. We are understanding the series now. Let's settle in and just knock down the shots that we normally make. And you saw a lot of, they made 18 threes last night, but Chris Finch said so after the game. He's like, I thought there were more on the table. And I agree with him in that. They missed a lot of great looks. I think that would help. And if they just, I think, also get their legs underneath them a little bit, have another 2 nights of sleep in their own beds before game 2, I think that will help things. I think that, they're just going to have to come out and just be a little bit crisper, a little bit better, a little bit more energy. And I think that will go a long way toward evening this series. I don't think there are any big schematic changes to make. I just think that they just have to just relax a little bit and don't press as much, have a little better shot selection. And I think they can be in good shape, not only in game 2, but in this entire series.
Not only do we have the John Krasinski Show, we have the best sports lineup in town, including Russo on hockey, Roy Smalley, Lavelle Neal, and myself on baseball, and the Chin Music Show, Mike Grimm on the Gophers. We have outdoor content from Ron Scherer Productions. We have all kinds of stuff. Check out TalkNorth.com. Again, we appreciate you listening. So would you say that they wasted good offensive performances by Jaden and Kyle, or that it's encouraging that those two actually shot the ball very well?
I mean, with Jaden now, this is the 3rd straight game where he's really played well offensively. So I think you can say, hey, maybe he is clicking into something here. Now, I don't think he's going to go 6 from 9 from 3 every game, but he just does seem to have a confidence about him and an assertiveness about him that is really, I think, going to be a big factor in this series. Kyle Anderson, 11 points, 5 of 8. I think that could be more of an anomaly. Although I do think that this particular matchup is much more advantageous for him than the Denver series was. So it is conceivable that Kyle has a really good series and plays well. He's going to get those little kind of mid-range, in the paint, at the elbow shots to take. And if he makes those, he can be really effective. They're also going to need him on Luka Doncic every once in a while to give Jaden McDaniels a break, to give, other people a break. And so, I think that I think Jaden is, you can look at and say, yeah, I think this can be replicable a little bit. Kyle is going to be a little bit more found money. And so then you swing to, well, if you're not going to get 6 threes from Jaden, if you're not going to get 5 of 8 from Kyle Anderson, you just have to get, you just have to get more and better production from Karl Anthony Towns and from Anthony Edwards and from Mike Conley, I think, too. Like, all three of those guys were not their usual efficient selves, and that's going to be the gap to make up. But I think you should feel really good about the way that Jaden McDaniels is playing, because he has now done this 3 games in a row in very big spots for them.
No doubt. Let's talk about Anthony Edwards. First, just introduce us to True Vision Institute.
Yeah, True Vision Institute in Bloomington. I was there earlier this week to get a consultation for LASIK surgery. Found out I'm a great candidate for it, and super easy to set up an appointment. Go in there. They run you through a bunch of tests. Their people are very nice, and they will give you a straight up and honest answer for your options for your vision correction. And I'm looking forward to having LASIK at True Vision once the playoffs are over. So go to truevision.com to set up your appointment, and you won't be disappointed at all. Great people at True Vision.
Thank you to True Vision Institute and all of our sponsors. All right, Anthony Edwards, he was 6 for 24 in Game 7. They found a way to win anyway, and he did make some good plays down the stretch. Last night, another inefficient shooting performance. Fatigue or a bigger problem or a slump? How would you characterize this?
Yeah, I think that it seemed like fatigue in that game a lot, Jim, because he took 12 of his 16 shots were threes, and he made 5 of them, so that's good. But I think that he was settling for threes too much because A, the Mavericks have really good rim protection and make it hard to get to the paint, and B, he was tired. And so they are going to have to find a way to unlock more of the downhill opportunities for Anthony Edwards and get him going in that direction, because that is what makes him the most dangerous. The threes are great. It was good that he hit those. But his shot profile cannot be that slanted toward the 3-pointer, and him getting a little bit of rest and coming in with a lot of energy in Game 2 is going to be key, because it is not going to be easy for him to get to the rim at all. But he does things that are not easy. That's what being a star player is. And so, I think that it's just going to have to be different. The Wolves in general, they shot 49 threes out of their 89 shots. That is an incredibly high number for them. And they made a bunch, which is good. But I do think it took away some of that aggression that makes them harder to guard. And so Ant is going to have to be at the forefront of looking for more opportunities to get downhill, either score at the rim or create for his teammates that way.
One more topic today. Our full in-depth show will come out early next week after Game 3 in Dallas. John and I will both be covering the games in Dallas. We'll be on site for all that stuff. For today, I hear a lot from fans. I do outstate radio hits where people, ask me questions like this, and I heard a lot of complaining about the refs. Now, I'm not going to defend the phrase subtle but effective push, but I do think that they let McDaniels guard Doncic hard early in the game without immediately getting him in foul trouble. The Mavericks are going to get some calls. They have players who know how to get calls, but I didn't think overall the game was refereed poorly, even though there were a couple of instances like the Conley push where, of course, you think they missed one. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree, Jim. The subtle but effective thing was terrible. Like,
yes,
it's just a ridiculous justification for a bad call. So that was one bad one. I agree. There might have been a couple of other kind of touch fouls that Luka or Kyrie or somebody got, but that is going to happen in the course of the game. When you look at overall, I mean, Jaden had 4 fouls, but he plays physically. Like, some of them were legitimate fouls. Rudy had 3. Karl only had 2. Like, I don't think it was a foul fest. I don't think it was, something that really changed the outcome of the game at all. I mean, if anything, all it was is that Dallas took advantage of their opportunities better. They were 16 for 17 from the line, and the Wolves were 11 for 18. And that's the game. That could be the game right there. If you just make your free throws and Dallas misses 1 or 2 others, then you're going to win that game. And so I know that fans love to blame the officials, and sometimes I'm right there with them. But that was definitely not one of those games. There were a couple missed calls, But by and large, it was much more on the Wolves and their execution and their lack of energy than anything that had to do with the officials, who I thought were pretty darn good.
Last question. Does game one change your opinion on the outcome of the series?
It doesn't, Jim, because like I actually was telling people yesterday going into that game, like I almost expected, I wouldn't say expected, but I thought it was very feasible that the Mavericks would win game one, just given that they had a 1 day of extra rest. The Wolves were coming off of a crazy win. The last 2 days had been chaotic and hectic and a lot of celebration and all of those things. And so I was sort of anticipating that the Wolves would not be playing at their best in game one. And so I'm not surprised at all that Dallas won that game. I still think the Wolves are the better team. I still think they can win the series. I just always expected it to be a 6 or 7 game series and a bit of a grind just given all of the circumstances. So Dallas is really good. They went out and earned it for sure. And I think that if you're going to be concerned from a Wolves perspective, you look at, hey, they only made 24% of their threes and they still won this game. So that's concerning because Dallas will shoot better. But I also just think that the Wolves have a lot of options to think about and look at where they can be a lot better. They can settle into this series now and win on Friday and then go to Dallas. They're 5-1 on the road this year in the playoffs. They're not going to be afraid to go down there and play. So they're still in good shape. I still think I'd still pick them to win the series, but game one was a missed opportunity to go up 1-0 for sure.
For Jon Krawczynski, our producer Brandon Morton, and TalkNorth.com, I'm Jim Souhan. We appreciate you listening. We'll talk to you again early next week.